His hand was around my throat before I could scream. I had been pinned to the wall of a locked nursery I was told never to enter. It was 3 in the morning. I had heard a crash, so I ran in and found 2 children bleeding on the floor, a shattered cup, and the man I had been warned never to speak to with his fingers tightening on my windpipe. He was going to kill me, but a starving little girl inched closer, not toward him, toward me. The little girl closed in on my wrist. I winced at the pain when they bit down. The hand on my throat opened and he let me go. Ironically, being fed on might have just saved my life. This is the story of what happened in that house afterward. The man I almost died in front of. The 2 children who would only feed from my hands. The job was night nursing. The pay was 3 times scale. The contract was thick enough to hang myself with, and the door at the end of the east corridor was locked, and the rule book said I was not to go near it. Pull the blanket a little closer. Before we open this one, if you've been finding comfort in these stories, a like and a subscribe helps me keep telling them. That's all it takes. Now, where were we? Bramble House rose out of the fog 3 hours from the city. Wrought iron at the gate, wet cobblestone in the drive, every window unlit except one on the 2nd floor. Warm, and somehow worse for being warm because it meant someone was in there not sleeping. Mrs. Orland met me at the door. Gray hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She handed me a rule book and a schedule and told me my room was at the end of the West Hall and the kitchen was stocked and I would be taking the night shift, 10 to 6, starting that evening. I read the rule book in the front hall while she watched me. Rule 3, do not enter the east corridor. Rule 7, do not speak to the man in the library. I looked up. She was already walking away. The man in the library, I said. She did not turn around. You'll know him when you see him. I saw him that first night, through a doorway I was not supposed to stop at. He was sitting in a green leather chair with a book open across his knee, a glass of something dark on the table beside him. He was not reading. He was not drinking. He was sitting the way a person sits when sitting is the only thing in the room they can control. I stood in the doorway longer than I meant to. He did not look up. I kept walking. The house had 2 patients. According to my paperwork, I never saw them. Their beds were in the east corridor, and the instructions were to keep them made, and the linens fresh, and leave the meals Mrs. Orland prepared on a tray outside the locked door. The meals were not food. I understood that on the 2nd night when I carried the tray down and saw what was in the cup. I set it down. I walked away. My hands shook a little on the banister going back up, and I did not let myself think about why. The staff at Bramble House ate from their own supplies. The kitchen never ran service. The pharmacy cabinet held no pills, only sealed glass vials of something dark, labeled in a handwriting I did not recognize, in a language I did not know. It was not a hospital. I had known that walking in. I had pretended I didn't, because the money was real and my rent was real, and there is a kind of tiredness that makes you very good at not asking. I saw him again on the 4th night, in the corridor outside the library. I had my arms full of linens. He was standing very still. "Excuse me." He stepped aside. Then he said, "What is your name?" It was not a question. It was the shape of a question, laid down gently, like he was afraid the real one would frighten me. "Dane." He said it back. Once. "Dane." The way someone sets down a glass they have been afraid to break. I felt it land in my chest. I decided not to know why. I carried the linens up the stairs and did not look back, and in my room I sat on the edge of the bed for a while before I got up and did my rounds. He was the first person in that house who had said my name without also giving me an instruction. The crying started on the 7th night, small, behind the locked door, 2 voices. One of them was calling a name. The shape of it was wrong, the consonants too soft, a name I had never heard before and would later learn the meaning of. I stood outside that door with the linens pressed to my chest and listened until my arms ached. I did not open it. I went back upstairs. I told myself I would ask Mrs. Orlin in the morning, and I did not. And Mrs. Orlin never asked me what I had heard, which was its own kind of answer. He knelt at the door every night at 3. I learned this by accident, carrying extra blankets down the east corridor because the furnace had failed on the 2nd floor. I turned the corner and saw him, forehead against the wood, hands flat on the floor, the tray beside him with the cup untouched. He was speaking through the door, very quietly. One phrase, over and over, in the language I did not know. I backed away before he saw me. I did not sleep that day. The next night, I left a paper crane on the tray. I don't know why. I had folded it out of an old grocery receipt while I was waiting for water to boil, and when I carried the tray down, I set it on the edge. I told myself it was for the children. I told myself he wouldn't notice. In the morning, the tray was back in the kitchen. The cup was untouched. The crane was gone. I started leaving things. A smooth gray stone I'd picked up on the drive-in, a ribbon I'd found in the lining of my coat pocket, green, from a life I no longer remembered, a biscuit from the tin Mrs. Orlin kept on the top shelf. I found it on the tray the next morning, crumbled, broken apart and put back, as if someone small had tried to understand what it was for. The stone disappeared first. The crane was just gone, and I told myself a child had taken it because the alternative was a thing I was not yet ready to think about a grown man doing. Somewhere in the east corridor, someone was sorting the world into things that could be held and things that could not. I found a drawing one afternoon, tucked inside a book in the library. The library I was not supposed to go into. I had gone in anyway, because my room was too quiet, and I had stopped being able to sleep through the day. The book I pulled down had a folded square of paper in it. I opened it without thinking. 2 small figures holding hands, a taller figure behind them. The taller figure had no face. I put the drawing back exactly where I found it. He began leaving things too. Not for me. At least, not that he would have called it that. But the kettle in the kitchen was always full when I came downstairs. The reading lamp in the hall outside my room was always on. The book I had borrowed, the one with the drawing in it, appeared on the table where I took my tea 3 nights after I put it back, with a second book beside it. A novel I had mentioned once, in passing, to Mrs. Orlin. I did not thank him. He did not acknowledge it. This was the shape of us for weeks. He moved through the house slower when I was in a room. I stopped flinching when I passed him in the corridor. We said almost nothing, and built something anyway, out of kettles and lamps and books, and neither of us named it. I stopped mentioning him in my voice memos home. I told myself there was nothing to say. The crash came at 3 in the morning on the 23rd night. I was in the linen closet at the far end of the east corridor, counting pillowcases, and the sound came through the wall like something in the house had finally given up pretending. I dropped the pillowcases. I ran. The locked door was not locked. It swung open under my hand, and I stepped through it before I let myself think, and what I saw stopped me so completely that for a second I forgot I was a person with a body. 2 children, small, too small, pale the way paper is pale, thin the way a held breath is thin. A girl and a boy, 6 or 7 by the look of them, though I would learn later that they were older, years older, frozen small by a kind of hunger I did not yet have a word for. The tray was on the floor. The cup had shattered. The girl was bleeding from a shallow cut on her forearm where the glass had caught her. The boy was trying to clean it with his tongue and sobbing because she was pulling her arm away. She was crying too, and shaking her head and saying something to him in the language I did not know, and he kept reaching. They were trying to feed each other. They would rather hurt themselves than take what was on the tray. I understood in the space of a breath what I was looking at. I took a step forward. "Let me—" And then he was behind me. I did not hear him. One moment the doorway was empty, and the next his hand was at my throat, and I was against the wall. His eyes were the same eyes from the hook, the decision already made. I did not scream. "The little one is bleeding. Let me help her." His hand did not move. Behind him, the girl was still crying. The boy had gone very still, the kind of still that children go when they have learned that movement gets them hurt. I could see him past Killian's shoulder, watching us, watching my wrist, which was the closest part of me to his sister. "She's bleeding. Please." And then she lunged. It was not an attack. A child, starving, panicked, half out of her mind, and she reached for me, because I was there, and the blood on her arm was hers, and the blood in my wrist was not, and her body made a decision her heart would not have made. She bit down, not cleanly, a child's bite, deep enough to scar. The pain was extraordinary. I remember thinking very clearly that I had been bitten by a dog once as a girl, and this was not that. This was a small creature who had been taught that taking was the same as being hurt, and was hurting herself in the taking. She recoiled the instant she did it. She crawled backward, sobbing, hand over her mouth, saying the word no in 2 languages. Killian's hand was still at my throat. My wrist was bleeding onto the nursery floor. The boy had not moved. He was watching the blood. He was so hungry I could see the line of his jaw through his skin. I looked at Killian. "Let me sit down. Let me offer it. Don't let them take it like this." He did not move for a long time. Then he let me go. I sat down on the floor with my back against the wall, and my bleeding wrist held out, palm up. I did not know the girl's name yet, so I said, "Sweetheart, come here. It's all right." She came. Her brother came behind her. They did not lunge this time. They crawled, the way small animals approach a hand they are not yet sure of, and when they reached me, they did not bite. They cupped my wrist between 4 small hands, and they drank the way a child drinks water after a fever, and I held very still, and I did not cry until later. Killian stood in the doorway the whole time. I did not look at him, but I heard him make a sound I could not name, something between a breath and a word, something low, something I would carry around in my head for a long time, without ever being able to place it. And I understood, in the part of me that understands without asking, that he had not known until that moment whether the children were still alive in there, not alive as in breathing, alive as in reachable. He bandaged my wrist himself. His hands shook. I don't think he knew they were shaking. He was concentrating very hard, the way a man concentrates when he has not touched another person without violence in a long time and is trying to remember how. He had gauze, antiseptic, a small pair of scissors, all of it ready. The cabinet in the nursery was full of human supplies. He had been keeping them there for a future human who had not yet arrived. When he was finished, he sat back on his heels and said, "You cannot leave." I wasn't going to. He looked at me the way a person looks at a word in a language he used to speak. Their names were Lia and Corin. He told me that night, quietly, sitting on the floor of the nursery with his back against the bed where the twins had finally fallen asleep, both of them curled against each other, Lia's hand still wrapped around 2 of Corin's fingers, breathing slow for the first time in days. I said the names back to him. He closed his eyes when I said them. I did not ask him what he was. I thought about the blood in the cup and the shape of the canines I had seen when Lia had, when she had, and I did the arithmetic, and I did not need him to confirm it. I'll stay. I know. I didn't say you did. He almost smiled. A muscle near his mouth moved, and then remembered it had forgotten how. I began to warm the cup, not too hot, not room, tested on the inside of my wrist, the one that wasn't bandaged, though the bandaged one was healing faster than any human wrist I'd ever bandaged. And I decided not to ask about that yet. I had a long list of things I had decided not to ask yet. It was getting longer every night. Lia drank first. Corin watched. Then Corin drank. Killian stood in the doorway with his hand pressed flat against the frame, and his eyes closed. And he was not a prince or a monster or a man who had almost killed me. He was a brother, and he had just watched his siblings eat. I noticed it 3 days later. I was changing Corin's bedding. He had fallen asleep in a pile of blankets in the corner. Not on the bed. He would not sleep on the bed yet. And as I reached to tuck the blanket over him, I caught my own reflection in the silver of the cup on the nightstand. Behind me, in the reflection, Corin had curled himself into a shape, forehead against his knees, hands flat on the floor, small, folded. It was Killian's shape. It was the shape Killian made every night at the door. I sat down on the floor of that nursery, and I could not stand up for a full minute. I did not cry. I sat there with the cup in my hand, and I understood, without anyone telling me, what kind of house these children had come from, and what kind of man had carried them out of it, and what it had cost him to keep them alive without becoming the thing that had hurt them. I did not tell him I had seen it. I went to the kitchen, and I made him a cup of tea that he would not drink, and I set it on the table where he sat in the library, and I walked away. The cup was still there in the morning, but the tea had been drunk. He started to unravel in small ways. He laughed once, briefly, at something Lia said, and looked surprised afterward, the way a person looks when they realize their own voice still works. He slept in the chair in the nursery instead of the library. He asked me what my favorite book was, and when I told him, he found a copy and left it on the table where I took my tea. He did not say it was for me. The drawing, the 3 figures. I saw it again when Corin brought it out from under his pillow one afternoon to show me. The tall figure still had no face. Corin looked up at me. Then he looked at the drawing. Then he picked up a pencil from the nightstand, very seriously, the way children do things that matter, and drew 2 small dots for eyes. He did not draw a mouth. He showed it to me. He waited. He sees you now. Corin nodded. Once. He put the drawing back under his pillow. I did not tell Killian about the eyes. It was not yet a thing a mouth could say. He told me on a night when the twins had finally slept through without waking, and the music room was open, and the piano was covered, and the garden past the window was full of frost. He told me his name, his full name, a name I had half heard somewhere in a history book I had not paid attention to. He told me he was older than the estate, older than the city 3 hours away. He told me about the night his eldest brother, Vasil, had begun what their family called the succession, how the royal children of their house were raised, knowing that only one of them would live past adulthood, how the lessons started young, how by the time Killian understood what the word brother was supposed to mean, he had already learned that his brothers were not his brothers. They were the shape of his death, and he was theirs. Vasil began the killing on a night in autumn. Killian had been the 3rd on his list. He had known for a month before it happened. He had spent the month teaching himself to walk quieter, memorizing the corridors of the nursery where the twins slept, and finding a door nobody else used. Lia had been 4. Corin had been 4. He had carried them out of that house wrapped in linen, one under each arm, through a servant's passage that had not been opened in 100 years. I have been running ever since, except the running stopped looking like running a long time ago and started looking like a locked door and a cup I could not make them take. Is he still alive, Vassal? Yes. Have you been... Could you have killed him? He was quiet for a long time. He was the first one who taught me to hold a knife. He cried the night he killed our sister. He still sends me letters on my birthday. I did not say my brother's name out loud for 4 years before I said it that night. I said it then. I told Killian that he had been younger than me, sick for a long time. Not the kind of sickness you can nurse through. And I had tried anyway, every way a person can try, and failed in every way a person can fail. And he had died in a hospital bed in a room I had decorated with things he loved, because I had not been able to give him anything else. I told him I had taken this job because I could not sleep in a house with daylight in it. I told him I had come here because I did not want to keep anyone alive anymore, that I thought I was done. And then I opened a door I wasn't supposed to open. I'm sorry I was what you found. We did not touch. We sat across from each other in the music room, and the frost on the window was the loudest thing in the house. He had been alone for 2 centuries. I had been 4 years. Neither of us moved. I figured out the cup the next night. I was passing the library on my way to the nursery, and I saw it. The glass on the table, untouched, dark, same as it had been every night since I'd arrived. I had assumed wine. Everyone assumes wine. I stopped in the doorway and looked at it, and I thought about the cup at the locked door that had come back untouched every night for 2 years, and I did the arithmetic again. I went to the kitchen. I warmed a cup, not too hot, not room, tested on my wrist. I carried it into the library. He was in the green chair. He looked up when I came in. He saw what was in my hand, and his face did something I did not have a word for. How long? How long what? Since you fed. He did not answer. Since they stopped. 2 years. I knelt beside his chair. I held the cup out. It's all right, you can. He took it from my hand. He drank. When he was done, he set the cup down on the table beside the untouched one, and he looked at me, and he said, in English, for the first time the phrase I had heard him say through the door every night for a month, I'm still here. I know. That is what it means. The phrase at the door. That is what I have been saying to them. I know. How? Because I have been listening. I did not sleep that night. I went back to my room after I left him in the library. I sat on the edge of the bed with my hands in my lap, and I did not sleep. I had knelt beside a chair and held a cup out to a man I knew I was in love with, and he had taken it from my hand, and I had not touched him, and he had not touched me, and somewhere in the house a clock struck 4. I understood, sitting there, that I had been holding my breath since the night I arrived. I did not know how to stop. He found me in the kitchen 3 nights later. We had not spoken. Not really. I had brought the twins their cups. I had warmed his in the morning and left it on the table. I had walked past the green chair twice a night and not looked into the room. He had done the same, not looked at me in corridors, not caught my eye when I passed. We were being careful with each other the way you are careful with a thing that might break if you touched it wrong. I could not do it anymore. My shift had ended an hour before. I had changed out of my uniform and come back downstairs in the soft gray dress I kept for the hour before I slept, and I was standing at the counter rinsing a cup when I felt him in the doorway. I did not turn around. Dane, don't. Dane, I need to. I said don't. The cup was clean. I kept rinsing it. I have to send you away. I turned around then. He was standing in the doorway with his hands at his sides, and his face had the look it had the first night I saw him in the library. Still, controlled. The face of a man who has decided the thing he is about to say before he walked into the room. No. Vassal will know about you, if he doesn't already. The hunters he sent did not come back. He will send more, and next time he will send people who know how to ask questions before they kill. I cannot have you in this house when that happens. Then we fight them. You are not a soldier. I am not leaving. You are. I set the cup down. My hand was shaking, and I did not try to hide it. Say the real reason. He did not answer. Killian, say it. That is the real reason. It is not. Dane, you are sending me away because you cannot be in this house with me anymore and keep pretending you don't want to be. The kitchen was very quiet. He looked at me the way he had looked at me in the music room and in the library and in every doorway in this house for 4 months. And he did not say anything, and I watched him not say anything, and the part of me that had been careful for 4 months went somewhere I could not reach. You drank from my hand. You told me things you have not told anyone in 200 years. You kept a cabinet of human supplies for a future human you had not met yet. You left books for me on a table without your name on them. You said my name one time in a corridor, and you have said it 100 times since without saying it out loud. And now you are going to stand in my kitchen and tell me I have to leave to keep me safe. I am telling you to leave because I am going to do something I cannot take back if you don't. Then do it. Dane, do it. The space between us in the kitchen was maybe 3 steps. He crossed it in 1. He did not touch me. He stopped with his hand raised and his palm almost against my cheek, not touching, close enough that I could feel the cold of him, and he said, I have been a careful man for a very long time. Do not ask me to stop being careful tonight. You will not like what is underneath it. I will decide what I like. Dane, put your hand down or put it on me. He put it on me, his palm on my cheek. Cool, steady now, not shaking the way it had shaken when he bandaged my wrist. His thumb traced the corner of my mouth once, carefully, the way a person touches something they are afraid is a hallucination. I closed my eyes. He said my name. Dane. It was the 3rd time in 4 months he had said it, and this time it was not the shape of a question, it was the answer to one. I turned my face into his hand, and I pressed my mouth to his palm, and I felt him go very still, the way a person goes still when they have been holding something for 2 centuries and are finally allowed to set it down. Don't send me away. No. Say it. I am not sending you away. Say why. Because I cannot. Say why, Killian. Because I don't know how else to say it, Dane, but his voice broke in the middle of it. I did not know his voice could break, because I carried it in my pocket for 3 days, that paper crane, before I put it back, and I have carried it in my pocket every day since, because I have been standing in the library every night for 4 months drinking a glass I could not taste, and the glass was a lie, and you were in the next room, and I could not bear to drink anything that was not offered by your hand. Is that what you wanted? Is that enough? Yes, that is enough. I don't know which of us moved. I have tried to remember. There is a version where he leaned down and a version where I rose up, and the truth is we met somewhere in the middle, because the middle is where we had been standing for 4 months without saying so. His mouth was cool. Then it wasn't. Then my back was against the counter, and the edge of it was against my spine, and I did not care. And his hand was at the nape of my neck, and the other one was somewhere I could not track. And he was not gentle. He had been gentle for 4 months. I had spent 4 months listening to him be careful, and I had not known I was this hungry until he stopped. I made a sound. I do not know what the sound was. Something small, uncontrolled, the sound a person makes when they have been holding a door closed and the door opens. He pulled back once, only once, his forehead against mine, breathing. His breath was uneven, which I had never heard before. Killian did not have uneven breath. Killian was the stillest person I had ever known, and his breath was uneven in my kitchen at 2 a.m. Dane, don't stop. I know. I cannot do this and then let you leave. I am not leaving. I cannot do this and then lose you. Then don't. He looked at me for half a second more, and then I think something in him finished breaking, because he picked me up. He picked me up like I weighed nothing, which to him I probably did, and my legs were around him, and my hands were in his hair, and I was kissing him again before he had taken a step, and he was walking and kissing me at the same time, down the corridor, past the library, past the green chair, past the untouched glass on the table, and he did not stop to look at it. He pushed open a door I had never opened. Inside was a room I had not known existed. A bed, sheets, a sprig of rosemary in a vase on the nightstand, silver green, dried, cut that evening, the stem still fresh at the break. He had cut it before he came to the kitchen, before he decided to send me away. He had cut a sprig of rosemary and put it in water in a room he was about to tell me I could never see. He set me down on the bed. He stayed standing. His hand was shaking again. I looked up at him, and his eyes were wet, and I understood, with a kind of slow shock I did not have time for, that he had kept this room ready for a possibility he had not believed in, and the possibility was now on the bed, and he did not know what to do with having been right. Come here. He came. He came down on me like a man coming home, not gentle. His hands were in my hair and on my jaw and on my waist, and they were everywhere at once, the way a person touches something they have finally been given permission to believe is real. I was pulling at his shirt. He was saying my name. He said it against my mouth, and then against my throat, and then against the bandage on my wrist, the one Lia had made, the one I had kept long past when it had stopped being needed. And he stopped there, with his mouth over the gauze, and he made a sound I did not know a man could make. He unwound the bandage, slowly. 1 pass, 2, the white cotton falling away onto the sheet, underneath the scar. 2 small crescents, soft by now, Lia's. He kissed it, and something in him broke open, and he stopped being careful entirely. I will not tell you the rest the way you have been taught to want it told. His shirt was off, and I did not remember unbuttoning it. My dress was on the floor, and I did not remember it getting there. A button came off. I found it under the bed 3 days later, pearl, small, and I did not stop to pick it up, and neither did he. He was cold at first, and then he was not. The temperature of him changed the moment my skin was against his, the way a cup of blood changes when it passes body heat. He said my name so many times I stopped hearing it as a name. It became a word in the old court tongue, a syllable he had been saving, and every time he said it I answered him with his, and his name in my mouth made him shake. Actually shake, a full shiver down his back under my hands. And I understood that nobody had said his name like that in 200 years, and he had not known he was starving for it until it was in his mouth. I had been a nurse for 9 years, and had forgotten, for 9 of them, that skin is not only a thing that gets wounded. His scars. I did not know he had scars. He had them. a long one across his ribs, a small round one at his shoulder, a raised line at the hollow of his throat I could only feel with my mouth. He had been cut and burned and bitten by people who had loved him once, and I kissed each of them, because he had kissed mine. At some point, the sheet was half off the bed. My hair was in my face. His was in his. The rosemary on the nightstand got knocked sideways in the vase, and neither of us fixed it. I laughed once, surprised, breathless, because he had lifted me, and I had not expected it, and he laughed too, against my collarbone. And it was the first time I had heard him laugh like that, and it undid something in me. He said at one point, with his face against my neck, I did not know I could still want anything this much, and I did not answer him in words. Afterward, we were both shaking, him more than me. I had not known vampires could shake like that, and I held him against my chest, and he was the one being held, and he put his face into my shoulder and did not speak for a long time. When his breathing slowed, I could hear his heart, slower than a human heart, a long, low tide of a heartbeat. I put my ear against it, and I did not move. I woke up once in the night. The moon was through the window, and his arm was around my waist, and he was awake, looking at me, the way a man looks at a word he has just learned the meaning of and does not want to forget. What? Nothing. Killian. I thought I would die before anyone saw me. Saw you how? Like this. I moved closer. I put my hand on his chest, over his heart, over the slow, low tide of it. I see you. I know. I have for a while. I know. You don't have to be careful with me anymore, not about this. He did not answer for a long time. His hand moved slowly from my waist to the back of my head, and he held me against him the way a person holds something they are afraid they imagined. I don't know how to be uncareful. Then we learn. The word again, I noticed. We. He noticed too. He said 3 words back to me in the old court tongue. I did not know them yet, but I would by morning, because he would tell me, because he had promised himself he was done keeping things from me. They were the same 3 words he had been saying through a locked door for 2 years. He was saying them to me now in the dark with his mouth against my hair. I'm still here. In the morning he got up before I did. I heard him in the next room. The small sounds of a man making tea, because somewhere in the last 4 months he had learned how. And I lay in the bed in that unused room and watched the light come in through the window, and I thought, for the first time in 4 years, that I was a person who wanted to be alive in a house in the morning. When he came back, he had 2 cups. He set mine on the nightstand next to the rosemary, which had fallen sideways in the vase, and which neither of us had fixed. He drank his beside me, in the bed, in silence. And when he was done, he looked at me and said, I have to tell you something. All right. Vassal will come himself now, not hunters. Him. How do you know? Because he will have heard. About the hunters. About you. He will want to see. I thought about it. When? Soon. Days. A week, if we are lucky. All right. Dane. I said all right. I'm not leaving. That is what I thought you would say. Then why did you tell me? He set his cup down. Because I did not want to have you in this bed without you knowing what was coming. I have been keeping things from you for 4 months. I am not doing that anymore. I reached out and took his hand. Good. He kissed my knuckles. Good. Before I got out of bed, he wound the bandage back around my wrist, not because the wound needed it, The scar had been soft for weeks, but because he had unwound it the night before, and because I had kept it, and because neither of us had said why. He wound it slowly, the way he had bandaged it the first time, and when he was done he kissed the cotton once, and I kissed the crown of his head, and we did not say anything about it. The hunters came on a night in early spring. I had been at Bramble House for 4 months. Lia had started to laugh again. Corin had started to draw with colors. The faceless figure in the drawing had eyes now and a mouth, and was holding both small hands instead of standing behind them. Killian had been taking the cup I brought him every night, and I had been warming 2, one for him, one for me, though mine was tea. And we had been drinking them in the green chairs in the library, and we had not been talking much, and it had been enough. I heard the glass break first, then the cry, cut short, then Killian's voice in the corridor. "Take the twins into the nursery, lock the door." I did. I held Lia and Corin on the floor of that nursery with my back against the door and my arms around both of them, and I listened to a house I had learned to love become for a few minutes something else. In the dark, Corin pulled something out from under the mattress and pressed it into my palm. He closed my fingers around it. He did not say anything. It was the gray stone, the one I had left on the tray months before. He had kept it under his bed all that time. He was giving it back to me so that whatever happened on the other side of the door, I would know I had a reason to stay. I held the stone in one hand and Lia in the other, and the door shook once and did not shake again. He came back bloodied. I opened the door when I heard him say my name. He was standing in the corridor. His shirt was ruined. There was a spray of black across his jaw, and his hair was wet with something I did not look at closely. He was breathing like a man who had done a thing he had hoped not to do. I went to him. I took the cloth from the tray Mrs. Orlean had left on the side table. She was gone. She had left hours before, warned by something I had not heard, though later I would find a note on my pillow in her handwriting that said, "Keep them safe, you know how," and I would fold it into the drawer I kept the stone in, and it would stay there. I wiped his face. He closed his eyes and leaned into my palm, and I felt the weight of him come down against my hand, and I understood with a small, clear shock that what the twins had refused from him for 2 years was what he had refused from me until 6 days ago, to be the thing that was held instead of the thing that was holding. Vassal was not with them. I know. He will send more. I know. I have not been able to kill him. I do not know if I ever will. I do not know what that makes me. I thought about that for a while before I answered. I think it makes you someone who still remembers him. He did not say anything. I cannot ask you to stay in a house that will be attacked again. Then don't ask. Dane, then we don't kill him yet. The word was we. He heard it. He reached up, slowly, slowly, and he put his hand over mine, where it rested against his jaw, and he held it there. I did not move. He did not move. In the nursery, I could hear Lia murmuring to Corin in the language I was beginning, slowly, to learn. The name she had been calling that first night through the door, the one I could not catch. I know now. It was their mother's. Lia says it in her sleep sometimes. Corin doesn't say it at all. The cup is on the nursery floor, empty for the first time in 2 years, catching the first gray light through the window that was dark on my first night in that house. On the bed there are 3 shapes breathing at the same rhythm. 2 small, 1 not. On the floor beside the bed, a woman is sitting with a bandaged wrist resting against another wrist, neither of them holding on, neither of them letting go. Outside, somewhere, a man named Vassal is still alive, and still sending letters, and still probably loved by the brother who will, someday, have to decide what to do about him. But not tonight. Tonight, there are 4 people in a room who have decided, without saying it, that they are staying. I tested the blood on my wrist before I handed it to him. Not too hot, not room, the way you do for someone you mean to keep.